People were willing to sell, but there weren't buyers coming forth to buy the stocks. And prices began to fall, $2, $4, $10
Good.
a share. It was sort of horrifying.
That morning there were drops on the stock exchange. It was so sharp and so dire. Stocks suddenly dropping 10, 20, 30 points at a time.
Yeah.
That it said that there were shrieks and gasps in the gallery.
History repeating itself.
Exchange.
People are stunned by what is happening and terrified.
Good.
Thousands of people begin to gather outside the stock market. 10,000 people. They fill the streets from Broadway to the East River.
People wanted to know what was going on. They went there. These huge crowds gathered around the stock exchange, around the statues and on the stairs, waiting to get any kind of news they could as people came out of the exchange.
The Wall
They
Street
could hear
crash.
voices. They could actually hear the shouting and yelling as people were buying and selling. But they didn't know what was going on, and so they gathered and they stayed there to find out.
This is BBC top.
Few of the thousands waiting in the crowd appreciated the scale of the disaster that was about to unfold.
Yeah. Like the
Nor
one
could they
that,
imagine that over the next 5 days,
yeah.
a financial catastrophe would sweep away the foundations of America's prosperity.
Yeah, like the one that's happening now.
But to understand what brought about the crash,
Yeah.
we need to go back a decade, to a time when American confidence grew so high
Yeah.
that it seemed the good times would last forever.
The Roaring Twenties, eh? End of World War One.
In 1919, the U.S. had emerged victorious from World War I.
Yeah.
A mood of optimism was in the air.
Learn your history, folks, before you
Britain
fuck
and
with
its
me.
European allies were exhausted financially from the war.
Yeah.
The U.S. economy was thriving, and the world danced to the American tune.
Yeah. Henry Ford.
The uncertainties were over. There seemed little doubt about what was going to happen. America was going on the greatest, gaudiest spree in history, and there was going to be plenty to tell about it.
The Volstead Act. Prohibition.
In the 1920s,
Gangsters.
everyday life was changing. Electrification transformed America.
Ziegfeld
Towns were
Follies.
hooked up to the grid.
Western
New
Electric.
technologies emerged. Airplanes, radios,
Sound
domestic
pictures.
goods that had started life as luxuries now became necessities. The car
Not
industry also
BBC
grew
shit.
as people flocked to buy one of the new Ford or Chrysler
Yeah.
automobiles.
Ford Motor Company.
An era of boundless prosperity seemed to have begun.
Yep.
This is the flowering of consumer culture and mass consumption on a scale never before seen.
Consumerism, which
There's
is now
also
dying.
installment buying to encourage people to
Credit.
buy big-ticket consumer items so that they can buy those items on credit.
This type of consumer credit was another innovation of the 1920s. For the first time, the
Higher
idea
purchase.
of buy now, pay later hit the mainstream.
And there's a kind of play culture that develops alongside this consumerism, which says, we believe now in instant gratification.
Instant
Take care of the
gratification.
now. Don't worry about the future. Live for the moment.
Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow you fry.
It was a whole ideology that we were in a new economic era. That it was the birthright of every self-respecting American to be
Have everything.
rich.
Soviet Union. No? What is this?
With easy credit and more disposable income, Americans were now
Bond.
looking for new ways to get even richer.
Bond market.
Since World War I, the U.S. government had sold bonds,
Yeah.
known as Liberty Bonds, to pay for the war. This was a way to borrow money from the public, who in turn would receive interest payments on the bonds' value.
Fucking pyramid schemes.
Celebrities such as Charlie Chaplin and Douglas Fairbanks had been recruited to promote them at huge rallies.
Yeah. And
Liberty bonds
chump
caused
bought
many
into it.
people to become investors in securities for the first time. For the first time in their
Dickhead.
lives, they got interest payments every 6 months, and the security was something they could trade on the market, so they could look in the newspaper and see what the price of my bond is today. Liberty bonds created an investing culture. Most people had never purchased securities before, and it got ordinary people accustomed to buying securities.
Speculating.
Now there was another group of people who thought they could take advantage of this new investing culture. The bankers of Wall Street.
For years, Wall Street, the center of American finance,
Yeah.
was made up of a small elite group of bankers doing business with each other
Okay.
in a society closed off to the general public.
Yeah. But
But one man saw an opportunity that would change the face of the financial world.
who's that? Morgan Stanley
Charles Mitchell, president of National City Bank, spotted a lucrative gap.
or J.P. Morgan? No, Mitchell.
Mitchell saw that investors had purchased a lot of government bonds during World War I.
Yeah.
And so he said, now we have an investing public there. All we need to do is market other products like corporate bonds, common stocks, and just tell people these are respectable investments.
Should be.
Mitchell was a natural salesman with a big ambition. If people were willing to buy bonds to raise capital for the
Then
government,
why wouldn't they buy?
surely they could be tempted to buy stocks and shares
Yeah.
to raise capital for private companies listed on the New York Stock Exchange.
There we go.
And they could make a profit for themselves in the process.
Gambling.
People who never dreamed that they would invest in
Speculating.
stocks were doing so, and stocks lost a lot of the stigma. Historically, stocks have been considered much too risky for ordinary people.
Yeah.
Whereas in the 1920s, there was a sense that investing in stocks was not only safe, but reliable and respectable.
Yeah, right. Until it all went pear-shaped.
The idea took off. And to exploit this lucrative new market,
Yeah.
Mitchell opened brokerage offices all across the country, where people who had the money but not the investment know-how could speculate in stocks and shares.
Yeah. Sheep. Lemmings.
This speculative frenzy embraced all kinds of people, not just professionals. Ordinary people began participating as well in unprecedented numbers all across the country, not just New York City, but in cities and small towns all across America. People were in love with the stock market.
Yeah, well, that's soon going to end. Sorry, folks. You want to know more?
Technology made it all possible. The latest share prices flashed from
Ticker
Wall
tape.
Street could be printed out within minutes across America
Yeah,
using
telegram.
telegraphic ticker tape machines.
Brilliant shit, this.
You could find ticker tape in nightclubs, in railroad depots,
That's
in
today's
union
internet,
bars,
folks.
on ocean liners.
Everywhere.
The market